Hey, what's going on, everybody? John Tarr here, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I know we have a bunch of international folks, and so I'm super excited to jam today, and we are live. So if you're joining us right now, we are here. Real quick question: can you please tell me, can you hear me? Do you hear me okay? I want to make sure that everybody can hear me fine. Just tap yes uh, in the chat box and then I'll know that you can hear me. And yes, yes. Okay, there we go. I was in the wrong box. I'm like, I guess not. Okay, awesome. And then last thing is, can you see my screen by chance? Oh, hey, there's me. Yo, word. Okay, can you see my screen? Just type in yes. Okay, great. All right, so we've got a pretty good event for you today, I think. And Roger's here with me. Roger, say hey.
Hello.
All right, and we've got Sarah and Denise, and I think maybe Tracy answering in the chat box. We've got uh, I think 1,000 people, or real close to 1,000 people that registered, and people are still pouring in. So I want to thank everybody for being here. And I think we've got a bunch of content. So as we get started, if you want to grab a pen and a piece of paper, I think you're going to get a lot out of this. And I think you're probably going to get some insight, not only into the crypto market, but maybe all markets and how market psychology works. And so grab a pen and a piece of paper real quick, and we'll make sure that you can write some stuff down. But here's what we're going to cover. I'm just going to go ahead and get into it. I know everybody's time is valuable. And so if you're still pouring in, catch up real fast with us. Um, so let's see here. Somebody asked me a question. No, you will not be getting the slides. So these are very ghetto slides, by the way. And just so everybody knows about my presentations, that I kind of do these on the fly. This is stuff I want to talk to you about, and the slides are really to keep me focused more than anything. They're not really there to look good. They haven't been proofread. Sarah's always like, hey, send me your slides. I'm like, don't even worry about it. So grammatically, if they're jacked up or if my spelling's off, it's cool. I really wanted to put this event together for a couple of reasons. Roger and I have some really cool stuff we've been working on that I think you're going to like and I think you're going to make money from. And also, I wanted to give you kind of an update on our thought of the market. And I didn't really have time to make it pretty. So the webinar page you saw was completely like, I didn't do anything to get you on that page. The slides here are black and white, the old John Tarr black and white slides, because it's really a lot of content and a lot of information I think you're going to benefit from. So just so you know. So I'm going to take you through, and Roger's going to take you through a little education on the markets and market cycles. And this is going to be really interesting stuff for you, and I think you're going to learn a lot. So this is really important stuff. We're going to talk about what's going on in the crypto market today. So, is the crypto market dead? Is Bitcoin dead? What's the SEC going to do? We're going to probably touch on a lot of that stuff, talking about why the market's behaving like it is. Why is the market so dead? We'll tell you why. We're also going to tell you, and this is the fun part, how do you profit right now from a crypto winner? We're going to tell you, and we're going to show you some really cool things you can do. We're going to talk about how to profit long term for the crypto winner. Right now is when long-term wealth is made. And I know you hear that, and it's not real sexy because there's nothing sexy about long-term stuff. Like who wants to think about, yeah, I'm 44 years old. I don't want to think about when I'm 74. Like I want to think about when I'm, next month or next week. And so we want to hit both of those things today. We want to talk about long-term and we want to talk about right now because they both play a part. And I completely understand that. I'm going to talk to you about the Rocket Club, which is our new thing that we're including in the insider circle that you're really going to dig. And I'll tell you how it came about, what it's all about, etc. So we'll talk about that. And then, as always, we're going to answer some live questions. I don't think that we have done a presentation since January, right, Roger, to our group. Has it been January?
It's been January. It's been a while. So we got a lot of pent up stuff here.
Yeah. So it's been January and we've been working on a lot of stuff. And so the first thing I want to do is congratulate you. And this is a fact. So in January, we had a much smaller audience than we have today. Now we've done the Totally Crypto Summit, and we've got a very large email list, and our group is 4 times larger. Our email list is 10 times larger than it was the last time we did this. But I still have about the same number of people on this presentation. I think we have about 10 or 15% more that registered for this presentation as over the last one we did, but we have 10 times more of the people. So that just shows that you're very engaged, you showed up, and you're most likely going to be able to profit from this market. So I'm super excited that you took the time to do this. And you're going to find this whole presentation is all about counterintuitiveness, why people flee the market, and really human beings, we kind of zig when we ought to be zagging. That's sort of our problem. And the reason we zig instead of zagging a lot of times, and I won't go into deep psychology things, but fear is a big human trait, and it's ingrained in us by design so that we can live. It's a survival mechanism. But what it does a lot of times is it causes us to do things that we shouldn't do. And we ought to really be doing things at the wrong time. So it causes us a lot of problems. And the problem comes when you don't fully understand what's going on. So you get a little afraid. And here's what I like to think about. And I'm going to tell you this before I start getting into it, a little story that's actually not in the slides here, but think about this. So, if you Google Bitcoin obituary, you'll see like Bitcoin's died how many times, Roger? Like 1,000 times?
It's definitely more than a couple handfuls of times.
Yeah, and we got in this market in 2013, and this is not our first crypto winter. And I'm going to tell you this: if it was going to die, it would have died after Mount Gox, which it did not do. And so here we are. But why do people say that? Well, they say it because they don't really understand market cycles. They don't understand that this crypto market is a market and it's going to move in similar cycles. And because it's smaller, those cycles are going to be shorter time frame and more volatile. But think about this. What if you don't understand night and day and the sun goes down? You're like, oh my God, we're done. The sun went down. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, it's over. We're all going to die. But then the next day the sun comes up. And you do that like 5 times. And you're like, oh, well, it's going to go down. It's going to come up. It's going to go down. It's going to come up. And you kind of get it. And so your fear subsides because now you're comfortable and you understand it. And so people get fearful because they just don't understand what's going on. And a lot of people in this market, especially, are very inexperienced retail investors. I mean, they're not in the stock market. They're not in any markets, equities, bonds, anything like that. So they don't understand the way markets move. And that's okay. But what we want to do, Roger and I today, Roger, is kind of educate them on how markets work and how to profit from that. So like, imagine this, imagine the sun goes down, everybody's freaking out and will give you their sunglasses at 10% on $1 because they're like, sun's never coming back up. And you're like, well, it's going to come back up tomorrow, bro. And they're like, no, it's not, it's over, it's over. That's what happens in every market. And so if you understand what's going to happen, you can make a lot of money. Is that a pretty good analogy, Roger?
That was actually a great analogy. I love that one.
That was right off top of my head. Coffee and Adderall are wonderful things, I gotta say.
Nice.
So, all right. So basically, we're going to show you 2 ways to profit. We want to talk about long-term profits. We want to talk about short-term profits. So we'll be in there. So let's talk about the market cycle. Let's talk about the sunrise and the sunset of the market. Now I'm going to get a picture here in just a second, and it is the psychology of the market picture. And so you want to follow along with me. I'm going to be moving back and forth in this. And if you have questions, kind of save them for the end. We're going to stay on as long as it takes to answer your questions. Sarah and Denise will be answering questions. Like if you have questions not market specific or whatever, they'll answer those for you. But I sort of get in a flow on these things, and so I want to make sure that we can jam here pretty good. So um, first thing to note, Roger, all markets move in cycles, right? This is not theory, this is economic fact. You want to talk about that for just a second?
Oh, absolutely. And I think one of the things with that is, and we've talked about this, John, is in July of 2017, published an article that predicted just about everything that's happened in this market. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about that when we get a little bit deeper, but it's not because of some unforeseen intuition. My crystal ball has actually been in the shop for a while, but because it is a predictable market that's happened numerous times in the past, you can just map it out and follow along with it. It's almost paint by numbers if you wanted to make it super simple.
Yeah, and in fact, I am going to make our customer service team ecstatic with me right now. Uh, if you want a link to that article that Roger wrote, which is spot on, and he published it so you can see the date. He predicted everything that was going to happen in the market. So send an email to support@digitalcurrencyindex.io, and we will get you a link to that. You can thank me later, ladies, for that one. So, but I think you'll love
I'll
it.
drop it in the chat box.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, um, I I think you'll love it, and I really think you ought to have it. And so, Roger, what I want people to understand is this is not like some theory that you and I just came up with. You know, we're sitting around the house, and I'm like, hey, market cycles, right? That's a cool thing. No, it's a fact. I mean, this is just the way markets move.
I mean, books have been written about this since the 1700s, so it's been science longer than anyone on this call has been alive.
Yeah, and here's one thing to understand too, as you're looking at this. So I put up the chart there. Can everybody see that? Maybe. Um, can everybody see that? Roger, can you see my screen? Can you see
I
the
can.
chart? Okay, cool. So yeah, just tell me. I want to make. Okay, cool. Thanks, guys. So basically, here is the thing with this. This is the way that a market coincides with human psychology, and I want to take you through this. And I'm going to give you some reminders of how this works. And so, because if you understand this, it'll give you a real glimpse into how to profit. Now, I had my first experience being on the wrong side of not understanding this in 2008 during the real estate bubble. I was heavily invested in real estate. I did not know what a market cycle was at that point, and I got crushed. And so if you're sitting there at home and you're thinking, well, why didn't everybody know this? And so if you're a guy who knows this or a gal who knows this, you're like, well, this is elementary 101 stuff. Well, it's elementary 101 stuff to you, but just like everything, like the world is just this vast ocean of information, and there's stuff people don't know. So there are people that are addicted to drugs, and they probably don't want to be, but they don't know how to not be. And there are people who are overweight, and they don't know how to not be. And there are people that have six pack abs because they get it. And you have all these kind of things. And so never think for 1 second that because you haven't heard it, it's not real, right? We all have these blind spots. And so that's one side of the equation, but also never think for 1 second that if you have heard it, that everybody else has heard it. Because what's a first language or firsthand knowledge to you is not firsthand knowledge to everybody else. And Roger, we found this out really quick in the DCI group and the Totally Crypto group that most people do not understand market cycles.
No, absolutely not.
So let's talk about this. Roger, let's go through this thing here, guys. You can see like the stages, and we're not going to go through every one of these today. I actually have a training on this that I'm going to give away, and I'll show you about that. But hope. Let me just take you through it real quick. And hope. Like when Bitcoin bounces 15%, everybody's like, "Oh, I'm hopeful, right? Oh, it's going to come back." And then optimism, belief, thrill, euphoria, December 2017. We're all geniuses. Every 24-year-old trader is printing money, talking about, oh, I'm printing money. I'm the smartest dude ever. And then comes the dip and complacency. And then comes, oh, man, Like this isn't coming back. And then comes, well, these are great coins. This is great technology. And then comes panic, like I'm out, right? I'm scared. Everybody's selling. And then comes capitulation. And how many times have you heard that? I'm 100% out of the market. Screw crypto. I'm out. It's dead. It's never coming back. You've seen it in the Totally Crypto group. We've got the fellas and the gals saying that. And then you get angry. Well, the whales did it to me. They're manipulating the market. Uh, that dude from Chase, he's doing it, whatever. And then you get depressed. Like, oh my God, my portfolio's down. I got crushed. What the hell, et cetera, et cetera. And I've always said, so like you'll see a lot of posts on Facebook right now. And Roger, I want to touch on this real quick, where people are like, I had one lady, her name is Virginia. I'm not going to tell you her last name, but she's an old client of mine. And I think this post was to me. She was an old marketing client, and she basically said that she couldn't believe that I, as a crypto quote unquote guru, could advise people. And I don't advise anybody. I'm not a financial advisor, but basically, like I was leading people to the slaughter, and now Bitcoin's worthless. None of which is true, by the way. And so what she doesn't understand about the market is this: if you bought at 20,000, it's not a problem if you sell at 100. So earlier in the crypto winter of 2014, Roger, I think we went from $1,100 to what, 190?
Yeah, in fact, it got a little bit higher in that, and then it completely bottomed out. And that was the point where everybody's like, this will never work. And they were wrong. And they've been wrong in numerous cycles since then.
Well, and think about this. So if you bought at 1,100 and it goes down to 190, and all the guys are like, oh, I bought at the top of the market, I'm a fool. Well, you're only a fool in that cycle. Because now, if you bought in at $1,100, you're feeling like a rock star because you just 7x'd your money. And so that is the point that I want to get across. You're only a fool in this cycle, but there's going to be more cycles. These cycles are going to play out. And so don't think for 1 second that it couldn't come back. Now, it took how long, Roger? We hit $1,000 in Bitcoin, I think January 2017, right?
Yeah, it was the last crypto winter lasted about 23 months till there was a retracement. And then we had a couple pips and dips in between there. But the longest one, and I'm reflecting back on when we came in 2013 and what we went through in 14 and 15 and then up coming into 16 and then the next takeoff into 17. It was about a 23-month crypto winter where there was just really nothing going on in the market, which was a lot different than what we're facing now, but similar in a cycle perspective.
Yeah, and so, so right now it could be hard. What I'm trying to paint the picture is it might be hard to think about crypto being worth 20,000, 50,000, 100,000. Your mind's just not going there because you're right in the middle of this cycle. But, the same way that in 2014, guys and gals, their mind wasn't going to 7,000 or 20,000. And so just understand that. And I want to give you that perspective as we talk about this stuff, because you need to understand that these things move in cycles and that, today's cycle is not going to be indicative of tomorrow. And most likely you're going to come out a winner if you don't fall into the human nature trap, which we're going to talk about. So, all right. So let's talk about this, Roger. Confidence and liquidity. So people ask, well, why do markets fall? Because markets do not go straight up. And here's the other thing to understand that I have learned: everything in life, whether it's sales or business, it comes back to psychology. And the reason it comes back to psychology is because human beings are involved in all of it. You're going to sell something, guess who you're going to sell it to? I've never seen a computer bot pull out their wallet and buy something. It just doesn't happen, right? A human being buys something. A human being is what invests in the market. So that is why this psychology stuff works, is because on the other end of the ownership of that coin, of that stock, of whatever it is a human being. And guess what? We've got emotions, Roger.
No, we absolutely do. And keeping them in check in lieu of data is one of the biggest challenges for all individuals.
Human beings are not logical. None of us, myself included. And you're certainly not logical when you don't understand something. That's when the emotions kick in because emotions, fear, anger, love, all this kind of stuff. But fear and anger are really strong. If you don't understand something, you get scared really quick, right? And so what happens when a market dips is this: the people, human beings, lose confidence in the market. And when you lose confidence in the market, you take your money out because you don't have confidence. So you take it out. That's why, when there was a run on the banks in 2029 here in the States, it's because people lost confidence. Any economic correction or catastrophic event is always caused by a lack of confidence, which leads to a lack of liquidity. People pull their money out because they get scared, and then that leads to a liquidity problem. And so when confidence in the markets are low, liquidity dries up. And that's where you see the crash and the corrections. And that's exactly what's happened in the crypto market. Now, I want you to understand that this is usually triggered by an event. And we can go through all the events that trigger it. Sometimes it's a very small little thing. And so, but sometimes it's not a very small little thing. Sometimes it's just the nature of, the market, and people lose confidence. And what happened where people lost confidence in December was simply regulation, Roger. Regulation was very uncertain, and it still is.
Absolutely. It's both the biggest drawdown on the market and the biggest potential catalyst for the market. And as each piece of news and each decision is made, you see the fluctuations in the market as everybody's sitting and waiting to be told that we're ready for the next bull run or the next level of legitimacy in the markets.
Yeah, and what happens, I'll give you guys an example just so you know, so you can relate it to the crypto market. Here in the United States, and I understand that a lot of our folks are international, but we do not have nationalized healthcare. At least we didn't until about, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years ago now. And so President Obama and Congress come up with a sort of a hybrid healthcare program. Well, what ends up happening is that shifts to something, and then a new president comes in and they change everything. Well, guess what? A lot of people don't want to get involved in the healthcare market right now because they don't have confidence to know what the hell is going to happen. Like, is it going to be nationalized? Is it not going to be nationalized? Is this going to be the deal? Is it not going to be the deal? Like, this guy's saying one thing, this guy's saying another thing. And so a lot of times these politicized events will be a catalyst for market disruption. So it's just like that in the crypto market. People don't know what's going on. They're like, what's the SEC really think about this? Is China's government in? Who is it, Roger? South Korea's got a toe in one day, and the next day, they got a toe out. And so people really, there's not a lot of continuity in this market to give people confidence. Is that pretty much your take on it, Roger?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's so many unknowns that it limits the ability for individuals or even institutions to have confidence, which is going to paint a great picture for why, if you can deal with that level of uncertainty, that there's so much opportunity behind that. And we're definitely going to dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah, and two things that I'll tell you here about here in the States. My cousin is a financial advisor, and we have some money with her. I don't do a lot with financial advisors, but she's family, so I put it there. I, First of all, she's not going to tell you about crypto because she can't. And second of all, she doesn't get paid from it, so you're not going to be told to buy crypto. And so there's just no way for people to really have confidence in this market or move money in this market until the regulation is all settled. And when I say settled, I mean you start seeing more and more growth in that space, more and more clarity. Because right now, Roger, it's about clear as mud on what the SEC thing. I don't even think the SEC understands what the SEC thinks.
No, they don't. And without diving too deep into the fact that until the major brokerage houses and banks can figure out how to make money on this market without pissing off regulators, all of the liquidity is kind of sitting on the sidelines. But we're kind of at that line. We're kind of like down in that crouch position, ready to start a race. And we're just waiting for the SEC to pull that trigger and watch the institutions figure out how to make money on this. And then the floodgates open.
Yeah, and a funny thing I'll say about that, none of this is in the slide. Like say, I just like to kind of bring it off the cuff. Is my financial advisor, my cousin, my wife's cousin, calls me for some advice, and she's like, I can't get into crypto, and I don't know what the law is, but she is licensed, and some organization won't even let her buy anything like that in her name. And she's like, I don't even know if my husband can. So she was going to look into it. We may have some financial licensed people on here that could articulate that better than I and tell me what law that is. But so she's certainly not going to recommend it to people. And that's where a lot of this liquidity comes, is from people that start to get confidence in the market. Hey, your financial advisor's confident in that market. Hey, the SEC's confident in that market. Hey, there's all this confidence. And so the liquidity kind of follows that. And so that's what we want to make sure that you understand. So, because a lot of crypto people are very, what's the libertarian, Roger? Deep state, debt bomb kind of people. You don't like government, you don't like interference, you don't like that kind of stuff. And I get it. Roger and I have been talking about the debt bomb for the last day. I totally get it. But Roger, we got to play nice with government regulation in order to get this thing to grow from a market perspective.
Oh, we absolutely do. And there's the centralized, decentralized conversation, which a lot of people get into. But what it really comes down to is if this is an investment instrument, like all other investment instruments, we as intelligent investors need to balance our risk and our potential, and we need to make educated decisions. And the best educated decision is that we'll be more successful if we play inside the lines as much as they will allow us to play. And that's the only path forward from a macro perspective in this industry.
Yeah, and I would really advise people, and then I'm going to get back into the slides. Write this one down. This is a writer downer if you grabbed your pen. In college, I learned two things. I learned my social security number, and I learned Miles' Law, which is where you stand depends on where you sit. And so I really kind of took that, and as an investor or a capitalist or whatever, I try to keep my own opinion out of things and just try to understand what everything is doing. So, for instance, let's say you are that libertarian and you don't believe in a centralized government and you do believe in a decentralized currency and you do think that crypto should be that. That's not wrong. I don't want you to think that that's wrong. But what I want everybody to understand is you can't look at a market or an investment kind of from that perspective. You have to look at it holistically and kind of take your own beliefs out of it in order to be a very sophisticated and advanced investor. It's cool to have beliefs. We all ought to have them, but they shouldn't get involved in our profit, you know? So is that a fair statement, Roger?
Absolutely. It's one of the hardest things to do, but those that master that master the markets.
Yeah, every now and then. And if you want to see me get really libertarian, check in with me when I'm writing tax checks. I've got very libertarian days those days. So anyway, all right. So here's what Roger and I think, or Roger, I think this is what we think. This is what I think. Let's see what Roger thinks. I think right now we are someplace between anger and hope in this marketplace. Would you agree with that? Disbelief, hope, anger, we're right there. I think we're about closer to the bottom than we've ever been.
No, and I completely agree. It's a combination of past experience, past overlays to previous market cycles, the psychology from a sentiment analysis perspective. I mean, I don't know how deep you want me to go there. I think the big thing is that as we train the individuals that watch us, we're still trying to pull the last 10% of people out of anxiety and denial and get them into a position in that through part of the market to be better positioned for what's next. So I agree with you. We're still trying to pull that last 10% into that and get an understanding about what's to come next.
Mm-hmm. And I think that if you go back, and the reason I say that is you can take a few of these out, right? We're not in euphoria, we're not in thrill, we're not in belief, like, hey, I've got to mortgage my house, right? I mean, nobody's thinking that right now. Um, Optimism, we're not in that, although we've had glimpses of that a little bit. We're really not in complacency. And so I think you can do sort of you can get rid of a lot of these things and say we're pretty damn close to the bottom in this market overall. And so that is in that anger, disbelief. And if you guys want this, you can Google this chart. I just found it on Google, but I've been using it for years, just so you know. So, all right. So we are currently in this market between anger and hope. Market's fallen and corrected, right? Bitcoin was hit $20,000 in December 2017. Today, I don't know the exact number that it's at today. It is not $20,000. I know that, and it's less than half of that. So market sentiment is low, and this is a really big thing because remember I told you that about like 10%, 15% more people have showed up on this presentation than the one we did in January. But guess what? We've got 10 times the people. So people just don't care at best and are scared at worst. They're like, man, that market's dead. I'm out, right? Um, some guys may have been killed by their wives for investing, like that herd gets thinned out a little bit in a down market. So, so basically that's where you're at right now. You're at low market sentiment. You're somewhere in anger and hope, probably more on the anger side. And that's where we're at. Let me ask everybody that's seen these. Um, I'm just curious. Do you agree with us, yes or no, that we're at the bottom, somewhere in the anger, depression, disbelief, hope stage? I'd just like to see who agrees and who disagrees. All right, cool. Agree. Yes. We are in the anger phase. Awesome. Okay, cool. So, sweet. Yes, yes. Low, so we got more to go. Um, moving upwards, what some guys say. Okay, that sounds good. So cool. All right, so let's dive into a couple of things. So now, if you think about this, do you agree that December 2017 was euphoria? I'm a genius. We're all going to be rich, right? I mean, that was euphoria, thrill. I'm going to buy more on margin. How many people did you know that did that? You know, there was a lot of guys. I'm going to mortgage my house. I'm doing this kind of stuff. I mean, you get caught up in it. It is exciting when that market's going. And there's not one investor on here, myself included. I bought a lot of Bitcoin early, and that dude was going up, and I was still wanting more, Roger. I mean, I'm not immune from euphoria.
No, I don't think anyone is.
And in fact, we had a euphoria conversation the other day about an investment we're doing. Well, I'm ready to cash in every single thing and go all in on it, which is a disaster, and I'm not going to do it, but I want to, human wise. So, and this is what we're talking about today: is what you want to do emotionally is what you should not do. So, um, okay, so everybody thinks, yeah, euphoria, yep. All right, cool, yep. All right, definitely agree. All right, sweet. So, okay, so then we go into complacency. In January 2017, everybody's like, well, the market's got a dip. It's not going to go straight up. If you read this chart, that's what it says. And then February is like anxiety and denial, like, oh my God, my wife's going to kill me. I took our stock money and I put it into crypto. Now it's not doing great. That Roger's an idiot. I can't believe, I got in this market. And then there's denial. And that probably happened around February 2, where you're like, yeah, I think it's coming back. Bitcoin's the future. and then all out panic happened in March. And go back, DCI guys, insider circle guys, inner circle guys, and look at the DCI, and you're going to see panic in March. And Totally Crypto folks, go back through Totally Crypto and look. And if you're not in Totally Crypto for some reason, go. It's free group on Facebook, and you can see this play out. You can see this play out. Okay, so and then capitulations, just people are like, I'm out, and that happened to a lot of people. They got killed, they lost money, and they're out. So know anybody like that? Put yes if you know somebody like that. I know a few people like that. So I'm out. Bitcoin's dead. A couple guys hit me up. You still in Bitcoin? I mean, I've been in it since 2013, right? Yes, I'm still in it. Market's dead, etc. And I have one guy that you guys would know, a multimillionaire guy, freaking out about his crypto holdings. I mean, this guy would be like a gnat on a dog's ass if he lost all of his crypto money, but he was freaking out. And he was like, Tarr, what do I do? And I'm like, dude, first of all, why do you care? Second of all, I wouldn't worry about it. So it's a human being thing. So if you are, it's not a rich person thing. It's not a poor person thing. Although if you don't invest more than you can afford to lose, that tends to help. But Roger, it's a human being thing. It's not a rich thing. It's not a black dude thing. It's not a white dude thing. It's not a Muslim thing. It's a human being thing. We all think like this, right?
Absolutely.
So you got to understand this. Now, let's talk about long-term profits. I told you I'm going to tell you how to profit long-term, and then I'm going to tell you how to profit short-term. Long-term profits. Let me ask you a question, everybody. At what stage of the market do you want to buy? So if you're going to buy into a market, and I think let's also understand that for the most part, if you are an investor, Roger, you're investing for like a horizon, right? I mean, you're investing for a long-term game most of the time. Now, some of us go after short term, but let's talk about in where do they want to buy? And everybody's coming in here. Buy on dips. Well, maybe Michael, you might want to buy on a dip, but let's talk about that real quick. Because let's say, Michael, just to answer your question and not to beat you up, because I don't want to beat you up. But let's say that you went from euphoria to complacency and you bought on a dip, right? Well, you still got a long way to go, man. So if you look at a macroeconomic cycle, Roger, where do we want to buy?
So, yeah, and I think that what Michael said too, and this is really important, what you started to get on is one of my quotes is, you want to buy when everyone is scared, and you want to sell when everyone gets excited. So when you look at the dips and you're looking at this technical element of a downward trend in price, that can sometimes be a false flag because you get little bounces, you get momentum swings. But when you look at the overall psychology of the market and you look at the long cycle, the big picture of the market, that's when you can start to see. It's not when everyone's in anxiety or denial or even panic, but once it starts to sort out and everybody's like, I am out, this is done, it's dead. If you believe that it's not, that's the time where you start sitting there and you start thinking, how am I going to accumulate to take advantage of this in the next cycle?
Yeah, exactly right. And Michael, again, there's no wrong answer. If you're a trader and you buy dips and then sell, you sell a little on the way up and then you buy, that's cool, man. And it's like whatever, like there's no wrong answer here. All I'm talking about from a long-term, Roger, you nailed it, from a long-term macro market cycle, buying on the dips. What I'm saying is, here's where you want to buy, and a lot of people nailed this. You want to buy at the bottom, but where's the bottom? See, people say bottom, and here's what I want you to understand, right? And I love everybody quotes, guys. Yeah, blood on the streets. Lots of people say that. I don't know who actually said it. People credit that to Buffett and Rothschild. I don't know who is the person that first said that, but it's one thing to say all these. It's one thing to say all these cliches like blah blah blah, right? Because a cliche is when you're on the outside looking in, right? So that's what when blood's on the streets. Well, what's that mean when blood's on the streets? Let me tell you what it means. Is when you're fucking scared, like right now, and you're like, I don't really know. That is what I'm talking about. That anger and depression and fear phase is when you ought to be thinking about buying. And the more that you are attuned with the logic behind it, then the more it's about you and not about like a third party cliche. Because we go, buy low, sell high. Well, what the hell does that mean? What's low, what's high? I mean, I know it sounds good, but I'm saying like, you know what I mean, Roger? Like, so right now, when you go into my Totally Crypto group and you make a post and you get 3 likes, that's a pretty good sign that there are crickets in the market and that everybody's scared and that there is not a lot of hype. There's not a lot of positive sentiment. And Roger, everybody's angry, they're scared, they're disinterested, they're fearful. This is the time to buy. And you people that said anger and here, let me put it right here. Anger and depression, you're correct. And it's right now. Roger, would you disagree with that?
I would not disagree with that at all.
See, the problem is at this point, everybody's out of the market. I talked to my friend Max Wright, who came to California for an event, and we had dinner. And he was the first guy I knew to had a Bitcoin training. It's 2012. This guy's got a Bitcoin training, and it's still in his Success Council web portal, if you guys are members there. And I mean, he's telling people to buy Bitcoin was at $12, for God's sakes. And I said, well, dude, why do you not have a Bitcoin product? He said, because nobody wants to buy it when they should be. So he's like, if I tried to sell it right now, it'd be crickets. Nobody would buy it. And he said nobody would want to buy it until the market's real hot again. And then I feel guilty for selling it then because I know they're going to get crushed. That's exactly what he said. And so it's like, oh, okay. And so it really started making me think, well, I've got to educate people about this so that they can get excited now, because now's the time you ought to be pumped up about Bitcoin, not after EFTs and 8 months from now when the market's back to euphoria and you're feeling good and you got in late. Right now is the time to get excited about Bitcoin long term. And that's where guys like Warren Buffett, and I'm not one of these guys that idealize investors, but that's what these guys do. They come in and they buy stuff for pennies on the dollar when everybody else is scared. And let me tell you the other thing they do is they get out at euphoria. They get out before that and they go cash, and then they have the patience to wait. Where most of us, we want something to play with. Now, I'm going to give you something to play with here in just a minute. But Roger, would you agree with all this that right now is the time to really be pumped?
Absolutely. And I think one of the things too is like when I had a chance to interview Tim Draper, who's definitely somebody a lot of people in the crypto space look up to as like one of the early institutional investors in this space, he said it perfectly after the collapse in 2013. He's like, it should have died. That should have been the end of Bitcoin. People were wiped out 87%. He's like, when it didn't die, he's like, that's when I knew. And then when that Marshall's auction came up for those coins that had been seized from Silk Road, he's like, everybody was thinking that they were going to buy them at a discount because the market was so in the anger and depression stage. And he's like, you know what? I went in and bid 5% over because I knew where we were in the cycle. I knew what was going to happen next. And he was 100% right. Imagine he bought tens of thousands of Bitcoins at around $600. And at the time, people thought he was crazy. Wouldn't you like to be him now with those holdings? I don't think anybody would complain that he understood the market cycle and knew how to take action on it.
Yeah, and I think that's the whole thing is that, sometimes even to this day, people are like, if you go to the Totally Crypto group, just somebody do this for me and tell them, oh, I'm going to buy 100 Bitcoin at 7,000. I forget, I don't know. I think we're right in that. Tell them you're going to buy it for 7,500. Oh, it's going to go lower, buy the dip. If it goes to 100, nobody cares, right? And that's probably what's going to happen. And that's what Roger's saying about Tim. And it's totally true. So it is time to get excited. Let's have an excitement cheer right now. You go, yay! This is the time to be pumped up about crypto. And this is the time everybody looks at you like you got three heads. Like, what is wrong with this dude? Um, and
There we go.
so, what's that?
I just
Yeah,
saw people, yeah, chiming in. I love it.
yeah. I mean, it's really true. It's like this is not false optimism. It's really true. It's like, I mean, you just know where the market's going. I had a conversation 3 months ago with Sarah Flowers, our operations manager, and I'm like, I just know where the market's going. I see there's zero doubt in my mind how wealthy I'm going to be in 10 years. And if it doesn't happen, I mean, I'm wealthy in other ways too, but it's just like, I just see the writing on the wall, and I don't think there's any better time to be excited about it. So, long term, if you want to lock in some long term gains, now's the time, in my humble opinion, Roger, buy Bitcoin. They're not making any more of it. I stole that from real estate, but it's finite. It's awesome. It's going to go up. It's a great time to buy it, in my opinion. That's not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. You will probably lose money. So, but do you agree, Roger? Bitcoin, buy, now is the
Yeah,
time to buy.
and it's the actions we take in our own portfolios. So actions speak louder than words. I'm buying more. I'm investing in this opportunity in multiple ways, which we're going to talk about. And I will tell you what I do as the best inference to what others should consider.
Yeah. Yep. Totally. All right. Now let's talk about what are we going to do now. So that's great, John. Roger, you guys are awesome. You're hanging out, you're doing your thing. That's cool. Thank you. Great presentation. Yay. But what do I do now to make a little money? So, 5 years is awesome. 2 years is awesome. 10 years is awesome. But what do I do right now to make some money? So let me tell you now, who's ready to hear how to make money now, like today in crypto? Yes, yes. Yeah, I got a yep. That's awesome. All right, cool. So if you're not familiar with Albert, let me give you a backstory. Some of you are, some of you aren't. Let me give you a backstory on Albert. So Roger Bryan and I met in April 2013. I think it was actually the end of March 2013 that bled into April 2013 at a marketing mastermind in St. Martin, where it was the first time we both bought crypto. And we bought our first Bitcoin. It wasn't any crypto, it was Bitcoin. That was basically it. And so we bought our first Bitcoin there, and our friend Max Wright was there. So Roger is like, I'm a marketer by trade, so I can sell stuff, and I'm a good marketer and things like that. Roger's like actually super smart. And Roger designs, he's a data and analytic guy. He's doing algorithms and all this stuff that smart kids do. None of the stuff that I do. But I had this marketing training on how to build an audience, and I built a crypto group. The reason I built a crypto group is because I had a lot of family that knew I was into crypto, and they were asking me about this USI tech, which was a complete scam. And I'm like, man, I got to educate people on some crypto because it's getting kind of hypey and people don't really understand it. So I built this group. Roger reaches out to me and he says, hey, dude, I started to do this thing in crypto where I designed Roger, tell them what you designed.
It was a predictive model for choosing 20 coins every month to invest in with an allocation algorithm that was designed to outperform Bitcoin, Ethereum, or overall market cap. And we were about 3 or 4 months in when you started your group, and it just seemed like it'd be a good idea to share out to the world what we were doing besides our own investing. And that was kind of the birth of Albert in the crypto space, even though he had lived in other spaces for a while.
And so tell them exactly what Albert does, like, how he dissects data and how fast it is and how many humans it would take and all that stuff that sounds really cool because I think it's badass.
So right now with the digital currency index allocation, Albert takes all 1,800 or actually up to 1,900 coins on coin market cap and analyzes them each month qualitatively and quantitatively to pick the best 20 with a greatest likelihood for positive momentum over the next 30 days using a 12-month data cycle. Then once he picks those coins, he takes a portfolio balance and he figures out how to allocate that amount of, say, Bitcoin across those 20 coins in order to maximize the probability of success while minimizing the probability of downward momentum. And John, in a given month, it takes 39 trillion calculations to create our index.
Yeah, and so I mean, for the kids like me out there that just didn't hear anything Roger said, Albert basically can do more work than a human being can do. I mean, like in 1 hour, he can do more work than what was it, 10 humans in a year?
Yeah, that was in the marketing space when he was doing data analytics for Microsoft. Now with the algorithms that are running in cryptocurrency, no human being could ever compile that much data in a lifetime.
Yeah, so it's pretty amazing what this thing can do, and it's awesome. And so I was like, Roger, this is really cool, and we ought to tell people about this because the number one problem then that people were having, they didn't know what coins to buy. They didn't know what coins to buy. And so in the Totally Crypto group, every 2 minutes there was a, what do you think about Verge coin? What do you think about Tron? And I'm like, dude, we need to tell people like what Albert thinks about this stuff because it's really cool. And that's what we did. So basically, our insider group started off of Albert, like in his predictions, and Roger reaching out to me, and I'm like, yeah, we should totally do that. That would be badass, and that's what we did. And so the index, Roger, and we're not going to this. By the way, everybody, this is not about the index. I'm giving you a backstory of how this new little rocket club came about, which I think you'll dig. So, Roger, the index has outperformed the overall crypto market for the last 13 months, right? Like since it was created, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and basically now, I mean, the crypto market's been going down, but the index goes down less, et cetera, et cetera. So, that's what it was based on. So then we have a problem, though. We had a problem. So everybody comes into um, our insider circle. We get hundreds of members, right? And then the market tanks. So it's like the market is going down like crazy. And and we like crypto, right? But people were buying at the top of the market. A lot of people bought at the top of the market. And in fact, many of the people in our group bought at the top of the market. They just got in December. So I said to Roger one day, hey, dude, can you develop? We've got all this data, we've got analysts, we've got a whole team of all these people. Can you develop something with Albert that'll get him to predict coins that are set to kind of go 10 to 30%? Like, can he predict that on a shorter life cycle? Kind of like we were doing on the ICOs, because the ICOs, it was just crush city, right? But you didn't have to be very bright to crush that market. So and we did crush that market. But I was like, man, that would really help people if we could do that. And so then Roger said to me, all right, let me go get with my data scientist and let us back test like how many months? Like 12 months of data, Roger, you back tested?
Yeah, we've got 13 months of data, and I'm actually looking at the data on my screen right now for this month's predictions because they came out today, and it goes back about 410 days.
Okay, so they start back testing all this data to make sure it's accurate, to do all this stuff to see if these short term predictions would work really well. And so then Roger says, hey man, here's my, and this is all happening behind the scenes. We don't tell anybody in our inner circle we're doing any of this. We just, Roger and I are talking about this. I'm like, look, I know what people want. People want short term wins. They need good gains in today's market. I want to go against the grain. How do we do this? So now Roger has been picking coins every month. Albert has, and they've been winners. And I'm going to share some of those winners with you in just a second. And so the Rocket Club was born because I wanted a way to beat the crypto winner. Like F the crypto winner. I need to make some money now, right? And I mean, I'm in Bitcoin for the long term, but I need something to play with too. I need something to make me a little bit of dough. And so that's how we came up with this. And you know, I bought Bitcoin at 90 bucks, but like Boone, who's in our insider circle, he probably didn't. Now I don't know where Boone bought his. So this was kind of created, Roger, with guys like Boone in mind. and gals. Like, hey, how can they put in a little bit of dough and be able to profit every month off of this?
Yeah, absolutely. It was trying to fill that void where if the overall market is either stagnant or not having a forward momentum that's predictable from a data perspective, that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist in individual projects, both quantitatively and qualitatively.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. All right. So let's look, Roger, take people through case study number one here.
So this one was definitely a qualitative element. So we had known for a while that Ethereum Classic was going to be added to Coinbase. We were watching this. It was our recommendation for the newsletter. But as we were watching, which should have been published on Tuesday, I think that would have been the 5th, Coinbase came out and tweeted like, hey, we're moving out of stage 4 into stage 5 of deployment. So we quickly were like, okay, we have to make a choice. We were watching this at $15 and we're like, this has got a greater than 71% chance, which is our maximum probability on the upside, likelihood of going up 20%. And we're like, okay, at $15, 20%, we do the math. Okay, that's right around 17.50, 18 bucks. Like this is going to be it. Then that tweet comes out and instantly we start seeing the numbers go up. And we're like, okay, quickly rerun the data sets on this. Is that 20% still there? And the data said absolutely 1956, lock it in, 71% chance. We sent it out to the group and lo and behold, just a few days later, it peaked at 2058. And if you're setting your triggers to exit at 20%, this was a home run for you.
Yeah, so case study one, 20% exit a few days later. Let's talk about case study number two, GenCoin.
So this one's a great one because we love this coin from a project perspective. In fact, I'm getting ready to interview the founders of this project. But what we were watching is that this is a leader in its sector because of its product platform in the masternode space. And we saw that it constantly rolled as an inverse relationship to Bitcoin, meaning that as Bitcoin would rise, Gincoin would fall. And with the volatility of Bitcoin around the ETFs not being approved, we kept seeing these entry points into Gin. So we started tracking that quantitatively. Now, just so that you know, qualitative is kind of like, what do our analysts see in the news, in the sentiment analysis? Quantitative is the numbers and the data. And it's a combination of both that give you what you're looking for in order to make good decisions from a probabilities perspective. So we told the group, hey, this is a play if you think the ETF on Friday could get turned down. We give them a risk ratio. We showed them here's how to enter and play both. If you can't short Bitcoin, well, here's a way to short it. The ETF, in fact, I think it was that afternoon, right after we published it, that got delayed. And then this spiked to $7.31 within 24 hours. And we just went through another cycle of this since then as well. So this is one of those ones that's locked into our triggers and we're paying attention to. So, I mean, that 20% on that was like around 515 and it hit 731. This was a great ride for everyone. And it really showed that this market can be played in both directions. I think a lot of people often say, well, I would kill in this market if I could short Bitcoin. And they're not wrong. But what they're doing is they're not diving deep enough to see that there are inverse relationships in some of these assets.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's a really good point. So, something for everybody to keep in mind there. And so, let's talk about this real quick. So, now what we're going to do, Roger, is we're going to take this new setup, and each month in our insider circle, Albert's going to give us 3 coins that he's going to predict a breakout within 30 days.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I'm looking at the data now. So out of 1,900 some odd coins, Albert sent me back 57 of them. And when it goes through the second filter, it goes down. There's 26 coins that have a higher than 71% chance of hitting a 20% gain before hitting a 5% loss. And there's a strategy in which you can play that, and they're in order. I'm looking at them on the screen. This is the quantitative metrics, and now we're going to back them up with qualitative data so that we can put them out to the Insider Circle group and give you that chance with the highest potential probability to find a winner between them.
Yeah, awesome.
Sorry, you let me nerd out. Sometimes I go deep down that rabbit hole.
No, I love it. And so, and here's the thing I told Roger. Standing in my garage talking early in the morning. I'm on Pacific time. He's on Eastern time. So I go out and talk in the garage so I don't wake anybody up, my family, because I'm up super early. And I'm like, dude, you can't have any more than three because I don't want to make it to where people have to decide stuff. Like they've got to guess. If you remember that conversation, Roger, I'm like, I just want to know, like, what are the three most probable that we can pretty much almost bet the farm on? Now, that doesn't mean every single one is always going to hit. It just means, you're playing a probability thing. But every good gambler knows that the more shots you take, the more the averages kind of come back. So investing and gambling are a little different. Roger, so I said we got to have three, right? We got to have no more than three. I didn't really even want three. And I think you pushed back and said three. I was like, one, give me one. Right? All I want to do is just know what to buy. But we
Yeah,
also wanted to
there's
make sure.
science behind that too. So there's an exact reasoning for that that is in the best interest of everyone from a decision making perspective, so that they can spread things out a little bit, or pick the one that they think that they can back.
Yeah. So basically, that's what it is. Is that we're going to give you three coins. Albert's going to give you three coins of what Roger said. Let me tell you what it's not. It's not really trading signals. Okay, trading is a little different than this. So I mean, I guess you could say it's kind of like, you could call it swing trading if you want to get really technical. But I don't really think that this isn't like a day trading thing. It's more of a going to give you the potential breakout, going to give you some pretty easy entries and exit points, but it's not really like a day trading thing. And here's another thing it's not. This isn't a long term play. So, Roger, when Albert says, you know, Brent coin is the way to go, we're not saying Brent coin's the best company in the world or coin in the world and you need to go buy a lot of it for a long term play. We're saying that dude's going to go up. You ought to buy it now, and then you ought to get out when you hit your mark, right?
Absolutely. I mean, there are some of these coins that I'm looking at, and fundamentally, I can say that I believe in them from a long-term project perspective. In fact, I see one, two, three of them out of these 26 that are actually in the index. Um, but the strategy behind this is you have a higher probability of a 20% gain than you do a 5% loss. And those are 26 out of 1,900 coins. So there's not a lot of these to choose from. So it's a very tactical play.
Yeah, so I just want people to understand these are short-term profit plays. So, and here's the thing. I think Tim Sykes, if you guys, anybody follows Tim, and I like his stuff a lot, but he talks about the penny stocks, and he trades a lot of penny stocks, and he's like, I don't care if it's a great company. I care if I can make profit and exit and make profit. That's what I care about. And so on this right here, that's the play. The play is I don't care anything about it other than what Albert said, and Albert said that it's going to break out, and I'm going to buy it, and I'm going to get my profit for the most part. All right. So, in my opinion, the Rocket Club is sort of been the birth from our DCI members that we have now, and it's a great way to beat the crypto winner. So, if you want to beat the crypto winner, this is a really good way to do it and get some nice gains. And if you think about month after month, I'm not giving you guaranteed results or anything like that. I'm just painting a picture that if you can get gains at 10% a month on some of this stuff and you're able to then, compound those gains, Roger, that's going to be pretty sexy at the end of a year.
It's gonna be absolutely sexy. And you know what's even more sexy than that is the way that we put these out is we price them in Bitcoin. Because why? For me, building my portfolio and for those that we work with, it's about putting more Bitcoin in the bank or the wallet, whatever you want to call it, because we truly believe that big things are about to happen with Bitcoin. So I want to be building my Bitcoin reserves. And by pricing all of these recommendations in Bitcoin, it shows you how with the same amount of money in the net market, meaning you don't have to bring net new cash in, you can continue to grow your Bitcoin holdings each month, move in, move out, grow that base of Bitcoin, protect your downside. Remember, we're looking at that 5% stop loss, which is really, really important to me, knowing that my maximum risk horizon is 5% and I'm seeking a 20% upside. It gets super, super sexy with everything that we see coming down the pipe for Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's super, super sexy. Yeah, and I mean, you start putting Bitcoin gain, like honestly, and I don't want to do that, because that's just pure speculation. But let me do it anyway. for a second. Because if you're doing 10% a month and then your Bitcoin, let's say Bitcoin does hit 100 grand in 5 years, and now it's amazingly sexy. So just keep that in mind with what Roger's saying there. It's pretty awesome. Because that's the name of the game, right? Get more Bitcoin. At least that's the name of my game.
Yep.
All right, so let's talk about this. Let's talk about the Insider Circle and the Rocket Club. The Rocket Club is just a part of the Insider Circle. It's a new thing that we're doing. It's sort of like, you know, whatever university, and this is their school. So Rocket Club is a part of that. Here's what you get with the Insider Circle. You get a monthly newsletter, gives you Roger's take, our analyst's take, Albert's take on the crypto market, and it's going to include the Rocket Club 3 picks. You're going to get a Facebook group for paid members, which allows you to talk crypto with some of the best and brightest. And I hope, I'm sure a lot of those guys are on the call right now, but we need some new blood in that group. We need some new excitement. And that's another reason we're putting this out, because, you know, human nature is human nature, right? So we need people that are excited about the market. You get a weekly face-to-face Q&A call with Roger, one of our experts. He can answer all your crypto questions. You want to talk about the market. They're pretty insightful, valuable calls, in my opinion. As you can tell from this call, Roger's a pretty smart dude. We don't give investment advice. I mean, we're telling you some different things to buy, but you know, you got to make your own decisions. We can give advice in a periodical and not be financial advisors. We're a publishing company, but we can't tell you, hey, Bob, this is what you ought to do with your portfolio. So we don't do that kind of stuff, but it's definitely jamming about crypto, which is awesome. So we're going to give some bonuses today. So if you join us today, here's a couple of bonuses that you're going to receive. I've actually got 4. You're going to get the crystal ball method. So I'm going to show you exactly how to predict markets. So, and it comes off of that psychology of a market. I dive into a whole training on this that I'm going to do for you so that you never get caught in a correction again. And I want you to understand something, even if you don't buy, so that you understand what that training is about. It's a bull market somewhere, right? So you got to find it. You never want to be subject to market conditions. So things like the Rocket Club, if you're in the stock market right now, it's still a bull market. And so understand that somewhere it's a bull market. And if you know where market cycles are, you can kind of predict that. And I think it can help you profit. So you're going to get that bonus free today just for joining. You're going to get Albert's Index. So we've got a training specifically designed to show you how to build an index. So if you want to build a long-term index and you want to beat the market and beat Bitcoin every month on gains, then you can build your own. You don't have to wait for the SEC or anybody to allow indexes. You can go build it. And we've already done that, and we do it every month. So you'll get that training. You're also going to get Masternode 101. So Roger will take you through a quick training designed to get you up to speed about masternodes. Now, we also publish Ryan Dombrowski, and he has a higher level masternode course. This is not that training, so I don't want you to think that that is the training, but this is a badass masternode training, which will get you started in understanding sort of these crypto cash flow assets. If you've never heard of a masternode, you need to know what they are. They're really cool, and they're another great way to beat the crypto winter. And finally, we've got our insiders event coming up in November, and it looks like we were originally going to do that in Vegas, and I think we're now going to move that to my home here in California. And so you'll be able to come to my house, which sits on the Pacific Ocean, and hang out with me and Roger and Ryan Dombrowski and some others in our inner circle. And we're going to do some drinks, and we're going to have some dinner, and we're going to have some conversations with other members, and we're going to talk about crypto or life or whatever you want to talk about. And I'm going to tell you, we've got some real ballers in our insider circle, guys that are entrepreneurs, guys that are really astute investors. Roger, one guy owns, I won't say his name, but he owns a hedge fund. I mean, these are people that you want to know.
Oh, absolutely. The conversations that we have behind closed doors are just some of the most exciting things that I get a chance to talk about. And I'm glad to expand that out a little bit with our members and really dive deep into these markets and other markets for a couple days.
Yeah, it's really cool. And we have a pretty neat circle of people I was just in Beverly Hills the last 2 days working with a client who is huge in the financial space and a huge, huge company. And the guy that owns this company is kind of approaching billionaire status. He's not quite there yet, but he's only 28. So I have no doubt that he's going to get there. And it's cool. And so, you're going to be able to hobnob with some people like that, you've never heard of. These guys aren't gurus. They're not YouTube influencers. These are just guys printing money. They're not interested in influence, and they're interested in printing. And that's what they do for the most part. So that'll be our insiders event, and you're going to like that and enjoy it. So we have not, since March, allowed, when I say allowed, that's like a very, what's the dictator kind of word, but we have not offered our inner circle for monthly purchase. We've only offered an annual membership. I had done away with the monthly purchase because it was creating some headaches. And so we've never offered that. But now today, we're going to open back up the monthly membership option for a limited time. I don't know how long I'm going to hold it open. That's not a scarcity tactic. That's like me saying, I really don't know how long I'm going to hold it open, because I'm not sure, what kind of people it'll attract and things like that. But today, we're going to have this monthly option for you. And so if you want to join us, Sarah's going to pop in a link into the chat box. And that's the link. You can come in annually. You get a discount on that. You can come in monthly. The monthly membership that we're giving you is basically month to month. So if you decide you don't like Roger, because I'm sure it'll be him and not me, then you can bounce anytime. And I'm kidding, of course. So let's take your questions. The link is in there. We invite you. Roger, Rocket Club is coming out when? Tomorrow? The next day?
It's coming out because of the holiday. It's going to come out Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. I have all of the data. It just came back from the team, and we're going back and forth, making sure that the models and everything are correct. Typically, the new newsletter comes out the first Tuesday of every month, unless the day before was a holiday, which just happens to be this coming week. So joining this group today is going to give you a chance that by the middle of next week to get those first 3 picks and really get a chance to hit this option running.
Yeah, totally. It's gonna be awesome. And so you guys will be able to jump in there. And it's really something we wanted to do. Like sometimes I think when you're in a group, you take a lot of responsibility and you really do try to provide value. Most people that I know that sell any kind of information products, you're like, man, how can I help people? How can I help people? And I just think this is a great way to bring some short-term profit back to this market. But at the same time, that'll keep your enthusiasm for the long term, which is really what it's all about. But let's answer some questions here. If you guys have some questions, answer them in the chat box. Here we're answering questions about crypto. You want to talk about Insider Circle, Rocket Club. You want to talk about coins. That's cool. Like whatever on those topics you want to talk about, we're all about it. Roger and I don't want to talk about former arrests or relationships, right? We're staying away from those topics. Everything else is pretty much full game there. Okay, so all right. All right, so question from Mike. Mike says, you're saying your predictions and trading should be 20% gain in Bitcoin.
Yeah, let me answer that one, Mike. The answer to that question is yes. Let me give you some technicals on that, and then John, stop me if I go too far down the rabbit hole. What we've done is find the highest likelihood coins that can hit that 20% gain before hitting a 5% loss. Meaning that you've always got to protect your downside. And I feel like too few people do that. And we've got training on this so that when we make these recommendations, the reason we make 3, and I mentioned that there is science behind this, is because there is liquidity problems in the market. If we made 1 recommendation every month and everybody went in it, well, it's going to go up 20% just for the sake of doing that. And I'm going to feel like a freaking dirtbag. I almost swore, and I usually do. But if I put 3 out there and we all go in and we play a little bit of each 3, the markets stay healthy, the markets stay legitimate. We're not doing anything that would make me feel like I'm not providing value. And if we have a 71% chance of getting a 20% before 5% loss, and we do the stop loss, I mean, the maximum you're going to lose is 5%, but we're going to seek greater than 20%. And if you stay on it and you exit, you win. So it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, and I think that you really nailed it on the head there, Roger, that this is a probability play. As with a lot of short-term, long-term stuff's easy to predict. I just showed you in less than 2 hours how to predict long-term markets. Now, that's a macro example, and I get micro in the training, but that's easy. I mean, it's pretty easy. Now, because we know we're at the top of the U.S. stock market, I don't know what day it's going to actually start to turn bear, right? I just don't. But I know it's coming sooner than later. And so when you get shorter term, Mike, you've got more room for variables and more room for errors. So you have to go by probability. So yes, we're picking those coins, but at the same time, Roger, it's a probability kind of model.
It is. And I think that and I'm going to grab a question out of here because it plays into this. Ginger, the two cryptos that you gave us, Ethereum Classic and Jin, the ones we should look at now. Here's what's really important about this is that we model out that 20% gain. Once it happens, you exit. And that play is over with. That doesn't mean that it won't come back around because Jin did just come back around. In fact, I think that we're at like 13 or 15% today on it alone. But that doesn't mean that those are the plays that you want to look at. That's why being in the group, being timely, and sticking with us is the best way to see these opportunities each month. And I love that John does the monthly option because if you get in, you don't like them, you get out. No harm, no foul. It's the best guarantee in the world. But I've got to be certain Ethereum Classic and Jin are not plays that meet this model today because they've both already hit their 20% exit, and there is an element of timing to playing those.
Yeah, and I want to be clear, and I think we said this. These are short-term plays. This is not us saying, oh, this is a long-term coin and this is a great project. No, it's like, hey, this is how to get some profit. And you get that profit, you get out. And so there you go. So yeah, cool. Good stuff. Thanks for the question. Good question, Ginger. Maybe a silly question, but what's the advice on buying crypto on Robinhood? I never have, so I can't answer that.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. It's one of many platforms. I think one of the things that I always say there is be careful on platforms that tell you that things don't cost you anything because what they do is they play a spread on the back end. So you technically are probably playing more without paying anything, if that makes any sense at all. So instead of if you go and buy a Bitcoin on Coinbase Pro and it costs you 12 bucks, you might go into Robinhood, buy that same Bitcoin, and they have increased the price by $100 because they're making their money on margin. Now, I'm not saying that they do that because I don't have proof that they do, but I know that they do because that's how everybody does it when they say it's free.
Yeah, and just this little piece of advice: there's no free lunch, right? And that came out what in the 1500s, because it's true, and it's always going to be true. So yeah, and so here's Bob asks, I'm interested in opinions on one coin, please. I'm going to give you a quick opinion on that, Bob, and I'm going to make it really simple, and then I'll let Roger answer the question if he knows a little more. For me, if it's not Bitcoin, which is my long-term play, I like Ethereum a little bit too, but I'm way bullish on Bitcoin. Ethereum's kind of like gambling for me. But I like Bitcoin for a long-term play, and I like Roger's 3 coins every month for a short-term play. And other than that, I don't really care. And so if one coin's not one of Roger's 3 plays, is it one of your 3 plays next month, Roger? Let's just give him a freebie.
No, no, that's been blacklisted.
Okay, so then no. So then I don't like it. Um, so there you go. So I don't like it. And so Roger, you don't like it. It's blacklisted.
It's blacklisted.
All right, cool. You're out. Um, all right. Okay. Do you still get the same bonus if you do the monthly? Yeah, you do. So it will be awkward for you if you come to my house and you are no longer paying us, but that's cool. I mean, but you're still welcome if you do that. Other than that, you're going to get the crystal ball method. You'll get the index training and the other bonus, the masternode training, just for signing up for a month. So you've got it, Adelina. And thanks for the question. Great question. Um, the critic Ricky says the critics that claim that Bitcoin will crash completely in a couple of years, are they wrong?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, here's
I
the
don't know how
thing.
much deeper you want me to go on that. There were people that said the internet will never catch on, automobiles will never catch on, people will never fly in planes, people don't need lights in their house. So you just, yes, they're wrong.
Yeah, and I think here's the thing too. If you know the history of this market and if you've been in this market for a really long time and you understand that whole market cycle thing, um, it's just we're in a down cycle. It's a bear market, and everybody starts getting afraid in bear markets, and they start saying things like that. But I think it's inaccurate. Now, it could have happened. I mean, anything's possible. My house could fall in the water. That's possible, but the
You
likelihood
do
is
live on
pretty
the
slim.
California coast, so it's
I
probably
do.
more
I mean,
probable. So
yeah, yeah. I mean, it could happen. Never say never, right? But the probability is slim, and I like probabilities. Um, I saw 1% increase and sell 5% decrease. DS. Dude, I have no idea what that means. So if you want to expand on that, I'd be more than happy to answer that or have Roger answer it. But that sounds more like a statement than a question. I saw 1% increase and sell 5% decrease. So DS, expand on that, and we'll come in. Bryan says Qcoin is one of my favorite exchanges. Cool. Um, awesome. Thomas, can you describe the third uh, COI besides GI and Ethereum Classic? No, I mean, these we've been back testing a bunch of different stuff, Bryan. And so in this month's issue is the first time we're going to have three coins all at once. So these coins that we gave you are just a couple of examples of over the last 3 months of predictions, how many coins we've got going. We could have put some others out here, but we just put those. And quite frankly, it's the only ones that I had in front of me when I made this ghetto slide presentation, if you want the truth. How's that for transparency? It's like that was the only thing I could cut and paste. Um, so cool. Thanks for the question. Michael says your thoughts on Vulture
Vault.
VPS hosting.
Yeah, I use Vulture for my masternodes, so I'm a big fan of Vulture. So I use a combination of Vermoc, virtual machine, and then Vulture in order to run those installs. I wish I could do everything on Vulture, but they're twice as expensive as Vermoc when it comes to some of my VPS stuff. But yeah, I'm a big fan of them.
Yeah, cool. Any other questions? We've got a lot of market analysis. Uh, how about any other questions on the Rocket Club, the Insider Circle, or the market in general? I mean, here's the thing. If you're going to ask coin questions, we're going to tell you Bitcoin or we're going to tell you the three coins a month. I personally, Roger, let's just have a 5-minute conversation. I don't like any of the old coins. I really don't. I'm a Bitcoin guy. You know that. I've been a Bitcoin guy forever. I think anybody that reads my New Wealth Secrets newsletter knows the grandma test. I'm a big believer in the grandma test with Bitcoin. I don't like a lot of the other coins long term. I don't like a lot of the other coins. What are your thoughts?
No, I agree in the most part. Now, we do look and we feel comfortable that out of the 1,900 coins on CoinMarketCap and the 5,000 coins that you can find across the hundreds of different exchanges, that there's probably about 55 that are worth tracking. So you're like 2%. And then out of that, we really have found the 20 that we like in the index because they've got legitimate projects behind them and that they've got some viability beyond that. But I'm much more confident in Bitcoin in the current market condition based on the psychology of markets and market cycles relative to any other project that's out there. Now, there are some things coming down the pipe. And when you join the inner circle, you'll see that we're going to talk about equity tokens, that sometime in the future, there's going to be a market to develop around those and that we're all educated and waiting. We're not putting money into them right now, but we're watching and waiting because that's going to be a brand new market cycle that's really going to change the way that everything works. So there are things coming down the pipe that are going to continue to change and scope that or change and frame this industry, but can't go wrong with Bitcoin.
Yeah, totally. I want to talk about that real quick too. See, because Bitcoin, I think, is the safest bet. Could some of these other things like do really well? Yeah, but safety, long-term play. I'm a big Bitcoin fan, and I want to say too, things change, man. I mean, especially in any market, but especially this market. What is the way it is today is not necessarily the way it is tomorrow. So understand that too. That things are always fluid and they're changing, and you really need to embrace that if you're going to be in any market. I mean, there's always changes. Um, all right, so let's see here. We didn't give you. So a couple of guys said. Um, what are the three coins? The three coins are the Rocket Club. You get those in our monthly newsletter. So the reason you didn't hear it is because I didn't say it. So
Yeah, and John, I want to put something on that. For those of you that are on the call, when it comes to using data to make predictions for probability of increase in value, Ethereum Classic and Jin are not those coins today. They are not those coins today. I don't want anybody on this call to go jump into those thinking that we're making that recommendation and get burnt. I'm not saying that Gincoin isn't one potentially, but I'm not saying that either of them are right now. The new ones are coming out next week in the Rocket Club. That's why we did this right at the end of the month, so that you can come in and you can get an opportunity to take advantage of these right out of the gate.
yeah, good questions though. These are all great questions. Here's a good question from our Mark. How many ICOs does Albert recommend on a monthly or quarterly basis? Here's how I'm going to answer. I'm going to call you Mark, even though that's not your first name. And I'm going to let Roger talk about this. Roger, one of the reasons we came up with the Rocket Club is because we had so much fun in the ICO space, but that space for American investors is pretty much dead. Like all these projects that are coming out right now are pretty much crap.
Oh yeah, 100%. We don't play around in the ICO space. Now, if I make an investment in a privately held company, whether it be through a securitized token or any other investment, I tell the group that I'm doing that. But what we found with the group is we needed something that everyone could take advantage of, meaning you don't need to be accredited, doesn't matter what country you're in. And that's where Albert's Rocket Club came into play. For US investors that are non-accredited, the ICO market is just really dead.
Yeah, you can't really do a lot of those projects. And I'm going to tell you right now, I had somebody reach out to me and they were like, "Hey, do you want to promote my thing? It's an ICO club." And I mean, that is such a red flag for me as somebody that's in this. I'm a marketer, but I'm in this space. And I'm like, "Well, there is no ICO club." You know what I mean? There's no ICO club because if you're a non-accredited American investor, Roger, the projects are junk.
Yep.
And I would never recommend something like that to people. Like I can't predict, and Roger, we can't predict what's going to happen in the market, but I'm not going to just automatically send you to the slaughter. You know, we don't get referral fees and stuff like that legally. We can't. So it's like we're not doing any of that kind of stuff. Just so you know. All right. So, how much budget should I have to get my investment back with the investments from the Rocket Club? That's always a different question. Never invest more than you can afford to lose, you know? So, I mean, if you're looking for a 20% gain a month, you can kind of do that math on what it's going to take to get that investment back. But, you also have to understand things are going to compound a little bit. So, your monthly take, 1 month it might be 10%, the next month it might be 30%, it could be 5%, it could be zero. And so that's just a case by case basis. But if this is the last money you have and you can't afford to invest, then we'd rather you not be a part of it, honestly. And I don't mean that in a negative way to you. I'm just saying, Roger, we want everybody to benefit from this. We're not looking for the sale, so to speak.
Yeah, no, I mean, if this is your last penny, if you want to go invest it on your own, great. If not, hold on to it and come back when it's a better fit. But yeah, I mean, we want you in here if you're comfortable and if you can get in and play, we can have some fun together.
Yeah, totally. And here's the thing. if that is a situation for people out there, because I know there's a lot of people besides the person I didn't name his name, but besides the person that asked the question, there's a lot of people that are like, oh, you're on a budget, and like, how much do I have to have, blah blah blah. And listen, if money is an issue, currently, money's always an issue. It doesn't really matter how much you make. You always want more cash flow. Just go buy some Bitcoin, okay? Don't join the Rocket Club. Just go buy Bitcoin. You're gonna be super happy. So take that money that you would invest in joining us and go buy you some Bitcoin, and you're gonna love Roger and I in 5, 10 years. So, all right, cool. Uh, Mike, is mining dead in your opinion? Um, in my opinion, no. I think mining is going to be a big deal for a while, but I will say that, like all markets, it is matured, and unless you have pretty damn deep pockets, you're not going to be able to play there. Would you agree with that, Roger?
Yeah, now sometimes the term mining needs to be defined between proof of work, i.e. Bitcoin mining with computer farms and high hash rate power, and then proof of stake or masternodes and staking. So I do think that it's much, much harder to get into the proof of work side of the world from an expense perspective. I tell the story in the group about the 85 rigs that we set up in our building only to get killed by heat in January in Ohio. But proof of stake, mining, staking and masternodes, man, it's a hot sector that's just being born.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and thank you for that clarification. And I guess, Mike, when I think mining, I think of the rigs and the big buildings. And I just did a little bit of consulting probably 5 months ago with a huge operation kicking off in Texas. And I mean, these guys were um, $500 million they were putting into this. And so, grandma can't compete with that, man. Like, your Dell isn't going to do it there. So I would stay away from that, Roger. But I think masternodes are awesome.
Yep, agreed.
Cool. All right. Uh, Adelina, do we have our own crypto wallet? No, we do not. Um, So, and I'm gonna butcher your name, and I am so sorry, Qin. Um, could be Quan too. That'd be a cool name if it's Quan. Qin's cool too. But Qin says, what value would you recommend investing into these rocket coins? As much as possible each time, a portion of past profits, $100 a pop. That's a different answer for everybody. Uh, Qin, if you have $100 million, 100 a pop really isn't gonna move the needle for you. If you have $100, it's going to be a different answer for you. So I think what I would tell people is never more than you can afford to lose. Roger?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. And I think that you did outline a couple different strategies. And it's one of the things that we discuss on the weekly calls each week is how different strategies will play out over time and the reasons behind having multiple choices so that you can spread out both risk while picking probabilities of profit. So each individual is kind of a different play, like John said, but there are some macro rules that once you develop your set of rules will help you to define how you enter. And we've got, I think, what we call the crypto manifesto, which is my 10 rules for investing. And when you follow along with those and you build your strategies around those rules, you'll answer that question for yourself.
Yeah. All right. So Craig asked, so is there something extra for me versus people getting it as part of the insider circle? No, it's the same thing. The Rocket Club is part of the insider circle. So anybody that's a member of the insider circle automatically gets the Rocket Club. It's just the name we put on these three coins. So so they're both the same. So no confusion there. It's not like one price for the insider circle and one price for the Rocket Club. Good question there, Craig. Thanks. Will there be a replay? Mark asked. Yeah, probably. I mean, a lot of times it depends on whether it recorded or not. And I didn't start the recording. So if it didn't start automatically, now that you've asked that, I'm like, uh-oh, I didn't record this. So I think it starts automatically. And I usually like to do a replay because we have so many people international that just, our times, you can't ever get a time that works for everybody. So there should be a replay. I can't promise anything, but it should be up there. How much is the Rocket Club? I think Sarah dropped a link in there, so you can click that link. And the reason I don't say that here, complete transparency, is because if I want to use this presentation later and I decide to raise the price, then I don't have to re-record it. That's simply why I do that, just so you know. Lorraine said, thank you. You're welcome, Lorraine. Thank you for being on here. Any other questions? I think we've had a pretty good run. Roger, any closing thoughts?
From a closing thoughts perspective, no, I think you wrapped it up with some of the questions. Really, if this is a good fit for you, you're in the markets and you're looking for an advantage, a way to leverage data, the way to be part of a community, to have a place where you can get questions answered, share your ideas. Like, this is a tight, close-knit group. There is zero tolerance for bashing ideas. So you can talk about everything and anything. Then you can't do that in public groups without getting some troll who disagrees with you ruining your day. We dive deep into everything. I try to make myself as available as possible to answer your questions. I love to nerd out on our weekly calls. But if this isn't a fit for you, either from a budget or a timing perspective, like John said, buy a little bit of Bitcoin. 5 years from now, when you're feeling grateful, John and I will gladly send you our Bitcoin wallet address so you can send us some of your profits. But if not, you will really be thankful that you took some type of action coming out the back end of this.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And in closing, I want to thank everybody for being on here. Like I said, it sounds patronizing when you're like, hey, because you see these marketing things. Congratulations, nobody stays the whole time. But it's like, it's really, if you look at the Totally Crypto group, I don't have to explain to you what market sentiment is. You can see the group is quiet. It's not growing, it's actually retracting because a lot of the spam gets taken out every day, all the fake profiles that Facebook approves. And so you're seeing right now what's going on in this market. So I do want to thank you for being on this, and I do want to congratulate you on still being in the market and understanding what we're talking about today and really making an effort to improve your education, because I think it's a big deal. I think getting you don't have to be a master investor to play in this market and be really profitable. I got lucky in Bitcoin. I bought it really. It was the one thing I bought that I thought I was setting my money on fire. And of all the investments I did in 2013, it's the only one I still have. The rest of them, I did set my money on fire. So you only have to get right. You only have to be lucky once, is the really good news about this market. And so, you're still in it. And I think that's awesome. So I want to thank you for being on here. And I want to encourage you, if you are not in the Totally Crypto group, so if you're in the DCI group, get in there in our insider circle, blow your front teeth out and talk a little bit. And let's get some dialogue going again. If you're in the Totally Crypto group, same thing. If you've got questions, if you're wondering what's going on, I'm in that group every day. I post some articles that I read, but there's not a lot of activity in there. People are pretty quiet because, again, it'll be blowing up at the exact wrong time for everybody in there. And so I want you guys to get excited, knowing that the future looks pretty good. So we're super excited. All right, cool. It looks like that's all the questions. Everybody, thank you for being on here. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, holiday weekend if you're in the United States. So enjoy that extra day off. And Roger, it's been fun.
As always, absolutely.
All right. And everybody, thank you to Sarah, Denise, Tracy, Erica, everybody that put in the hard work to get everything ready for you guys today, and get the members area all tightened up and ready. So we appreciate you ladies a ton. And moderating this event is time consuming for them. So just want to thank everybody, and thank you for the question, and we'll see you soon.